Oi, fellow comrades, this is Squidtard here, not on the camera just yet, and you'll figure out exactly why that's the case momentarily. Now, of course, in every single one of my videos that I've done retaining to sports content or, football content, I have won I have worn Tennessee gear, or at least, it's easy to tell that I have been a Tennessee fan. Now, today is a very rare exception when it comes to the gear that I wear, as today I'm choosing to wear my LSU gear. Now, it is not because I'm riding the bandwagon, or it's not because that in case you don't know, my dad's side of the family was born in Louisiana, so they're big LSU fans, and I've kind of spread a little bit of that on me. Went down to Baton Rouge a few times, got to experience that environment, bought some gear down there. I never really got the opportunity to wear it in any of my videos, because why would I? An opportunity has risen itself for today's video and the thing that happened over this last week. Now, I'm going to tell you a story today. I'm going to tell you a story about how I met the man and how I got to interact with a man known as David Murphy. Now, David Murphy was someone who, you know, I started YouTube and I started making content through football 2 years, something like 2 years after I actually started, my YouTube channel. And I was a big time fan of college football YouTubers, and I would be up in Uncle Lou's comment section, and he was there too. We were both moderators on his channel, and another guy named Eagle actually came up with the great idea to create a moderator chat for the Uncle Lou mods. And I was in there, he was in there, and as well as David Murphy. Now, David Murphy was a huge LSU fan. David's the biggest LSU fan you could ever know. And I got to be able to, as soon as I met the guy, I knew from the moment, from the get go, that he was a LSU fan, a huge Tiger fan. And every day since then, up till last week, I have talked to him almost every single day. Whether that's just a slight conversation back and forth, or through a group call, or something else, in the group chats that I've been in with him, and I've seen this, and many people can back me up on this. David Murphy is one of the best people you could ever meet. He's funny. He always lightens up the community and lightens up whichever conversation he's in. And tragedy struck last week when David tragically passed away. And I had to take some time off of YouTube to reflect off of that loss. It was something that hit extremely hard for me because, like I said, I've known him for 5 years. He was one of my best friends. I interacted with him every single day. So when that happened, my whole world just went upside down. I've never had someone so close to me just disappear like that, and it was just awful for me. I won't lie to you guys. Broke down in tears. Needed a week off of YouTube. It was just a very, very, very sad day when we figured out the news last week. So, unfortunately, the truth is that the world goes on, and I can't, lay down and do nothing for the rest of my life. So, I decided that the best way to go about moving on is to be able to express my love for David through the gear that I'm wearing on today's video, that being the LSU gear. And man, it's just, you never know when things are going to happen. Life is precious. Make sure that everybody watching this knows that. And yeah, David, on the behalf of the entire community, the Squidtard community, David has always been in live streams and in a lot of my videos. David was a huge part of this community, and he was just an amazing guy to be around. So, David, brother, I'm gonna miss you. I'm gonna miss you, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. So, for this season and for however long I live going forward, I'll tell you this, David, I love you, man. Go Tigers. Oi, fellow comrades, fellow viewers, this is Squidtard here on Squidtard Sports, bringing you another Squidtard Sports video. How many times can I say Squidtard Sports? I don't know. A lot of times, apparently. Well, we have a big video for today in the form of talking about the LSU Tigers, specifically what they're going to do for this season. Now, LSU is a team, it's a lot like this is going to be a lot like the Florida State video that I made a few months back, because this is they're basically two of the same teams here. A lot of hype returning to them for this season. Now, today's video is, of course, about LSU, so I'll talk about, and I'm going to give predictions later on in the summer. I'm not going to give my official predictions for LSU until we actually reach the summertime period, so if that's what you're here for, probably best not to get your hopes up on that just yet. You won't know about those until we reach the summertime. But this is kind of a preview about where I think LSU could go going into 2023. Now, LSU's got a lot of hype around them for this season, going into Brian Kelly's second year at LSU. A lot of his returning talent is coming back. Now, he is losing a lot of big playmakers, which I'll get into that momentarily. But let's take a quick rewind and take a look at what LSU has done. So, LSU, if you go back to 2021, Coach O's last year, it was a miserable year to be an LSU fan. Ended up going 6-6, 6-7 after a loss in the bowl game. Now they did beat Texas A&M at the end of the season, but it was definitely a very disappointing season for LSU. So they fired Coach O at the end of the season. They fired him before the season even came to a close, but they let him play out the rest of the games. But after that, they bring in Notre Dame head coach Brian Kelly. Now, Brian Kelly has been known as a coach with a lot of wins under his belt, a huge amount of wins. Now, whether or not you want to make jokes about him, we can't win in the postseason, which kind of true, but also Brian Kelly has a lot of wins under his belt and certainly was not the worst pick for LSU. Well, fast forward to the end of the 2022 season, and we now know a lot more about LSU than we did going into 2022. So, for starters, it was a terrible start for LSU. Rough start. Lose to Florida State in the beginning of the season. Most people thought that LSU was going to be terrible, donkey doo-doo booty cheeks. And, well, you go into the next few games, close win over Auburn. Then you got absolutely drugged across the field by Tennessee at home. And past that point, everybody thought LSU was, this is going to be one of the worst LSU teams we've seen in a long time. Well, after the Tennessee game, things just seemed to change very quickly. They go on to, absolutely dominate undefeated Ole Miss. Now, Ole Miss, they played nobody before that point. Whatever you want to say about that does not matter. But anyway, they beat Ole Miss very convincingly, beat Florida on the road, and then, of course, the win that everyone wants to talk about, they beat Alabama. At home, it was a very defensive game. Definitely not Nick Saban's best offensive game of all time. Certainly not the case. But LSU held their own. They had a great defensive performance. And then Brian Kelly, big balls Brian Kelly, made the big move to go for two as soon as he scored that touchdown in overtime. And, well, he got it. Mason Taylor on the sideline. It was a huge deal. Everybody was just blown away. Nobody expected that to happen. And when LSU won that game, by extension, they also won the SEC West and got the privilege of being Georgia's next victim. Now, say what you want to about that. Winning the West in Brian Kelly's first year in the SEC, that's a pretty big feat to achieve. So, that being said, that was impressive. All things considered, that was a huge deal. They did go on kind of, it was a rough road towards the end of the season. They lose to A&M, like I said. They lose to Georgia. The loss to A&M had a lot of people confused. But, they did at least win the last game of the season against Purdue in the Citrus Bowl to at least finish out with a 10-win season. So, a 10-win season with a win over Alabama, all things considered, should be pretty good. So, LSU is another team this season, like Florida State, which is riding high after a pretty good season with a bowl win. And, are they overrated? Heard a lot of people talk about that. LSU being one of the most overrated teams this season. I've seen a lot of polls have LSU as high as number 3 above teams like Alabama, Ohio State, and some even have them above teams like Michigan, which is absolutely insane to put LSU above those teams after the feats that they accomplished. So I don't know. I don't know. A lot of that definitely does go into recruiting, which LSU has done a great job at recruiting, not taking anything away from Brian Kelly on that front. And a lot of it rides on the momentum of the previous season, which LSU had some of that going for them. So you tell me, is LSU overrated? Are they a top 5 team going into 2023? They very well could be. Looking at their roster, Jaden Daniels returning for his senior year. Had a pretty good season, a rough, rocky start as you would have expected. But after those first few games, Jaden Daniels really turned it up a notch and made some big plays. So interesting to see how that plays out. Mason Taylor, the guy who of course is credited for making that big play in the Alabama game, returning for his sophomore year. Is that correct? That's something. So he'll probably be there for 2 more years after this. He's looking to be one of the best tight ends in the future. Look at him in the future. Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., and Karen Lacey. Those are the 3 starting wide receivers. Those are the people they're having to replace after Jeray Jenkins and Kayshawn Boutte have moved on. So we'll see how that plays out. As for the rest of the talent now, LSU's offense, I think, this season, I don't really think they have much to worry about. Most of the talent, most of what they had is coming back, so I don't think they have too much to worry about on that front. However, the defense, let's go ahead and take a look at that. So the defense has a lot of people leaving. Ollie Gay for one, BJ Ojolari is another. Those are 2 big playmakers that LSU had. And then there are plenty of others you could look at, whether or not you want to say that they're not that good. They were still starters for LSU. So this is going to be interesting to see how the defense performs. Now, one of the biggest bright spots on LSU's defense is the linebacker, Harold Perkins. Now, he had a phenomenal freshman year, and people are going to be looking at him going into this sophomore year, seeing he may be one of the best, maybe one of the best players on LSU's defense. Major Burns probably going to be the bright spot in LSU's backfield this year. If there's ever any questions about what LSU is going to be able to do this season, most of them are going to lie on that defense because that's where the least experience is. But they do have some elite playmakers to kind of balance that out a bit. So we'll see how it plays out. Going to be interesting to see exactly where LSU goes in terms of that. But going to go ahead and take a look at their schedule now. This is the peak of having 2 monitors right here. I've got the depth chart and then I've got the schedule here. And you can cry about, Squidtard don't know the LSU players by default. Well, what do you want me to say? I don't know every single LSU player in my brain. I don't have that much brain power in me. Anyway, though, let's go ahead and take a look at their schedule. So they play Florida State to start out the season. Now, they lost to them last year. They get them again this year. This one, however, this one's not in Louisiana like the last one was. This one is in Orlando, Florida. So it's another neutral site game, but instead of LSU having the state advantage, now that lies into Florida State territory. Now, I'm of the belief that Florida State, kind of like LSU this season, is a tad bit overrated. People have got them ranked as high as a top 5 team, and I don't think they have the merit to do that just yet. Now, they did have a 10-win season, but most of the teams that they won against were mediocre ACC teams. They have a lot of talent coming back this season, so, people think highly of Florida State for the reason that all of their depth is coming back, which that's a pretty big reason right there. I think Florida State will take a step forward in the right direction, maybe enough to where they win the ACC, although anywhere near the playoffs, I just don't think that's going to happen. And I think LSU in this game will probably end up being the favorite, even though Florida State won the last game. Whether or not LSU wins that one, we don't know. We'll have to see. They play a high school team, and then after that, they go on the road to play Mississippi State. Now, they did beat the Bulldogs last year, and I think they have a pretty good chance to beat them again this year. After that, you get Arkansas on the road against Ole Miss and Missouri, back-to-back road games right there. So you pull Missouri out of the East, which honestly, that's way better than pulling out somebody like Tennessee or Georgia. So that's a very winnable game for LSU right there. I don't expect to. I'm really not too high on Missouri. I don't really expect too much out of them. Then you get Auburn at home, and this is way later in the season than the last one was. That one, I think you played them in like September. I think you played them in early September or late September last season. Now you get them in the middle of October. And then after that, you get a neutral, or not a neutral site game, but a non-conference game against Army, which that should be a fun one to watch, but although I'm expecting LSU to win. Then you get your bye week before you go on the road to Tuscaloosa to play Alabama. Now, that one is going to be a fun game to watch. I think it's going to be very entertaining. Alabama may take another step back this season. Not too sure about that. We don't know. We'll have to see. But after Alabama, you get to play Florida this late in the season, kind of like the Auburn game. This one's way later in the season. And then you play, you play Georgia State. That's no good. That's no good. I can tell you a lot about that if you want me to, but I think, seriously though, I think you'll be okay. And then you get A&M at the end of the season at home to end out the regular season. So LSU's schedule really isn't that bad. It's still a gauntlet because it's still in the SEC. You still have to play SEC caliber teams, so no game is a gimme. You still have Florida State as a non-conference neutral site game, so that's still going to be a tough one, I think. But LSU has some games here, which if they win most of these, they'll be in a pretty good spot. Now, let's all be honest, though. LSU fans are probably wanting LSU to win at least 11 of these. So let's say LSU goes 11-1. Where would the loss be? Well, the most obvious pick would be Alabama. Now, in that situation, if they lose to Alabama, go 11-1, this is kind of like the Florida State Clemson situation. If they lose to Bama, they kind of have to rely on Bama to lose 2 more games in the SEC. Otherwise, they don't make it to Atlanta for the SEC championship, which is a huge deal to the playoff committee. That's a huge, huge deal. So I think LSU fans need to take that into account before they predict LSU to lose to Alabama. Now, predictions are one thing. But if you think that the best case scenario for LSU, other than 12-0, is a loss to Alabama, then I don't know about that. Maybe you could sneak your way into the playoffs and then beat Bama in there, but we'll have to get to that when we get to it. Truth be told, if you lose to Alabama, end the season 11-1, pretty much nothing is in your favor anymore. You're going to have to rely on a few other teams from other conferences to drop games. You're going to have to check out what goes on in the rest of the college football world in order for things to be in your favor. Although if you were to lose a game like Florida State early in the season and then ride, I guess, kind of a, comeback season, you beat Mississippi State early, then you ride that momentum all the way through, beat Alabama after a bye week, and then win the rest of your games. Because other than Alabama, the rest of these, I think LSU are probably going to be favored in. So you win all of those, end the season 11-1. Your only loss is a non-conference loss. You'll be undefeated in the SEC. You'll definitely make the SEC championship. And whoever you play there, it's going to be a tough game, whether it's Georgia, Tennessee, or what some people are saying, Florida. But nonetheless, I still think LSU is going... I don't think LSU is going to win that game. At least I can't confirm that. Because, Georgia's returning a lot of talent, Tennessee's returning a lot of talent, a lot of unknowns with some of those teams. There's no certainty on that front. But if you finish the season, 11-1 with that loss to Florida State, win the SEC championship, sit there at 12-1, you'll most likely be 1 or 2 in the playoffs. Whatever else happens there, unknown. Now, LSU could, of course, go 12-0 with this schedule, and then they have the luxury of losing the SEC championship because they won all of their games in the regular season. TCU got that luxury last year, and if LSU were to do that again, any team that goes 12-0 whether that, no matter who it is probably making the playoffs. Whether it's, even if it's a non-conference or not a non-conference, but an independent like Notre Dame. Brian Kelly knows a thing or two about that, so we'll see how it goes. It would be interesting to see Brian Kelly back in the playoffs if LSU is as big a deal as people are saying they are. So we'll see how it goes. What do you guys think? Is LSU going to be the high caliber team that a lot of people think they are? Let me know down in the comments below, and I will respond to you accordingly. Thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, power to Tardaria, go Vols, and go Tigers too.